Good evening. Welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shom. On the program tonight, it turns out that 2 years before she was murdered and cut up into 35 pieces by her boyfriend, Shraddha Walkar had written to the Mumbai Police stating categorically, and I quote, "He threatens to kill me, cut me into pieces." That, as it turns out, is exactly the way in which she was killed and her body disposed of. On the program today, why did no one answer Shraddha's SOS? But as importantly, we have a very special panel tonight. Survivors of domestic violence who've chosen to come on this program and speak out against the abuse that many women suffer, while also making the point, perhaps, that getting out of a violent marriage or relationship is often easier said than done. This is important and comes at a time when so many have ended up blaming Shraddha for not getting out of a horrific relationship earlier. As I mentioned, it's easier said than done. Well, joining me now, Flora Saini. She's an actor and has faced domestic abuse and violence herself. We are joined also by Meghna Pant, an author and also a survivor of domestic violence. Dr. Miran Chadda Bowankar is a former Indian Police Service officer, also with us on this program. Kavita Krishnan joins us in a few moments, as also a friend of Shraddha, Rajat Shukla. But let me go across to Meghna first, and thank you so much for being with us. My question, Meghna Pant, for you is this. At a time when the attention of so many people has come on to Shraddha saying, why would an educated woman not get out of this relationship earlier on, that there was something wrong with her for being unable to get out of this, isn't it true that that's exactly the wrong way of looking at things? Instead, we need to understand why she was unable to get out of this relationship.
I think, Vishnu, that's a very good point that you raised. I keep saying this, that leaving an abusive marriage is not an event, it's a process. Or an abusive relationship, it's an entire process, because abusive relationships don't die, suddenly like a heart attack. They die very slowly, like a cancer. And I was in Shraddha's shoes, and I have to say this today, that I'm only lucky that I'm alive and happily married now with 2 small children. But this is not the fate that most abused women face. The problem is that women like Shraddha, despite their education, despite women like me also, despite our education, despite our exposure, despite being financially independent, we still don't know how to leave abusive relationships, because entering into an abusive relationship means you've been gaslit to such a great extent. All your shred of self-respect, dignity has been torn off you by your perpetrator and usually his family as well. And the perpetrator also is very manipulative. Let's not undermine how the power dynamics that are involved over here. The hold that somebody who's abusive, remember, for them, it's a manipulative game. It's a slow burn. They start targeting women who are particularly vulnerable. And again, I keep saying this, it's not like a perfect victim prototype or abla nari or anything like that. You can be a very modern, educated, westernized, independent.
We've got a few details of what you went through, but carry on with what you're saying. Yeah.
So I think women like Shraddha, first of all, you laugh again when I say this, that sometimes women don't recognize that they're being abused, because we have heard the narrative that any relationship mein, ki har relationship mein ek do thappad to, they're valid, they are normal. I was told things like, behind every closed door, behind every marriage, at least in India, men are hitting women, and I have to put up with it because that's completely normal. So again, you're gaslit to such an extent. First of all, you're not unable to identify what abuse is. Then you're made to undermine your gut instincts. You're told that what you're feeling is not valid. So you're completely diminished. You're invalidated. You're being abused on top of that.
Yeah.
And it becomes very difficult to leave also, because remember, Vishnu, let's not forget the fear that nobody's talking about. Imagine, I had reached a point in my marriage where I was sleeping with a knife under my pillow. because I was so scared my perpetrator would come in the middle of the night and just attack me, and I had nothing to defend myself with.
No, that's,
so the
that's just
fear
that's
that
just,
you live
that's
with.
just horrific. Flora, Saini, let me come to you. There's also this horrific stigma associated with getting out of a relationship, getting out of a marriage. Is that something that also affects people, even though they may have been beaten up, abused terribly in relationships which have gone sour?
Yes, I think, see, if I'm to quote Shraddha, and even in my case, when you fight from your family to be with the love of your life, when you go against them, I think the whole thing of trying to make it work, there's an added responsibility, not even responsibility, but you've hurt your parents so much that you don't want this to fail. You really want it to work. And, like Megha just said, it's very, very difficult for you to go back because there is emotional attachment, there is emotional blackmail that happens. There is, of course, you feel it's love, but you are manipulated in such a way that you really don't understand. Leaving is really, really hard, and threats. There is a lot of, they try everything that you can think of in the book to keep you with them. They would abuse you, yet have you by a hook, be it emotionally, be it blackmail you, threaten your parents. They'll try everything in the book to keep you there.
It's just horrific to hear this, and thank you for the courage of agreeing to come on this. Neelu Sharma is somebody who's survived domestic abuse and violence as well. Neelu, how difficult was it for you to come to terms with what you were encountering and to manage a way to get out of it?
यस सर जहाँ तक बात मेरी थी तो मैं बहुत चीजें टॉलरेट करती रही, जैसे पीरियड्स में 3 days तक किचन में एंटर नहीं करना, और खाना भी मुझे मतलब पर्दे के नीचे से दिया जाता था। जहाँ तक मेरी बात थी मैं बहुत चीजें टॉलरेट करती रही, लेकिन जैसे गुड़िया हुई मेरी बेटी, तो उसके खाने के लिए भी मुझे वेट करना पड़ता था कि कोई मुझे उसके लिए खाना देगा तब मैं उसे खिलाऊंगी, क्योंकि मुझे खुद से किचन में एंटर करना अलाउड नहीं था। तो ये आज के टाइम में भी ये चीजें होती हैं।
और कितने साल तक ये चला आपके केस में?
सर अभी 2.5 साल हो गए हैं मेरा केस चलते।
और मतलब अब आप क्या करेंगे? आपका केस कोर्ट में है अब, और आप होप कर रहे हैं कि जल्दी ही मतलब आपका शायद डिवोर्स हो जाए, जस्टिस मिलेगा इस केस में? आपका लक्ष्य क्या है, आपका गोल क्या है? सिर्फ डिवोर्स का, या आप मतलब एक्शन चाहते हैं आपके हस्बैंड के खिलाफ?
हाँ जी सर, मैं एक्शन चाहती हूँ सर, क्योंकि आज के टाइम में जहां हम कह रहे हैं कि वुमेन्स आर एम्पावरमेंट, महिला सशक्त है, और वहां ये चीजें दिखाई जाती हैं कि नहीं, आपको बोलने का भी हक नहीं, आपको अपनी पसंद के कपड़े नहीं पहन सकते, आप अपनी पसंद का खाना नहीं खा सकते, आप अगर हस्बैंड बैठे हैं तो आप खड़े रहेंगे, अगर हस्बैंड खड़े हैं तो आप बैठ नहीं सकते, जो हस्बैंड ने कहा है वही होना चाहिए, आप बोल नहीं सकते, आपने बच्चा हो गया है लेकिन आप उसके एजुकेशन के बारे में कोई भी आवाज नहीं उठा सकते, आप कुछ भी नहीं बोल सकते कि उसका कहाँ एडमिशन होना है, कैसे होना है, कुछ भी नहीं, बस आपने जन्म दिया, बस दैट्स इट, आपकी ड्यूटी यहीं खत्म होती है।
It's absolutely horrific. Kavita Krishnan is with us as well. Kavita, we didn't really get around to looking at this very carefully last time around, but let's talk about a couple of important points that you have raised, and I think it's reflected by all of these accounts that we've heard today, that there is a need for sustained non-judgmental support for domestic violence victims. You can't go around and say, oh, you should have gotten out of it, oh, you are so educated, why didn't you do this, oh, what kind of families do you have that they didn't help you out. It doesn't work like that.
Right, Vishnu. I'm so glad that we are hearing voices of survivors here, because I think that maybe is the best way forward, where we just try to listen to people's experiences, all of us, and maybe rethink all the ideas that we thought we knew about domestic violence. I know that even now, although I've I've worked with survivors for so long, I know that even now I cannot fathom that situation where somebody has control. I think if I had to describe what I understand of it a little bit, the small glimpse that I get, that is about the sense of complete control.
Yes.
You know, that someone has control over you. That is actually complete control. Okay, that I think is, more than physical violence. Physical violence itself, if any of you, even if you're a man, if you ever experienced physical violence, you may know that it does something to you. It's very shocking, and to have that continuously done, that is unimaginable. But even apart from that, that sense of control, I think that does something to your thinking, where you don't feel, women don't feel able to think of themselves with any respect. So because they don't receive respect, because they don't receive humanity, they stop thinking of themselves as deserving of that. And I think that is something very difficult to understand, because, I've seen other really, fine people also, fine women also say that, but I can't understand, why is it that they don't leave? And I think that, that's very difficult to understand for someone in this situation. It's a very peculiar situation of custodial torture. That is the closest I can get to saying it, It's custodial torture, but it's at the hand of someone you love.
Yeah.
So someone who's going to keep telling you he loves you. You're going to keep hearing that he loves you. And that, you will feel that you will leave him in the lurch if you leave. How will he manage without me? He needs me. And of course, even if you decide to leave, there is a fear, because he's going to threaten to,
Sure.
Kill himself, kill you, all those things,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to go across to Dr. Miran Shraddha Walkar, senior IPS officer she has been. Dr. Walkar, a key point over here is the need in our society, right, to get a system within our police force to prevent a domestic violence situation escalating to murder. That requires incredibly sensitive policing. In the case of Shraddha, she sounded this red alert 2 years ago. She said, he is going to cut me to pieces, he is going to murder me. For whatever the reasons were, that letter was not accepted. Is it because our policemen and police women are often not trained to deal with cases of domestic abuse and violence?
I would say that we have basic training for our constabulary and officers to deal with cases of domestic violence. They may not go very deep into the psychology part of either the victim or the accused, but registration of these cases, in Maharashtra, I'm surprised that you are saying the case was not registered. Maybe Shraddha took it back, letter back.
She took it back, or somebody persuaded her to take it back. But ma'am, isn't that reason enough for the police to continue their investigations?
No. So in domestic violence cases, many a times, if the victim takes the complaint back, or if the family intervenes, or there is a reasonable expectance that we expect that the parties will compromise, the case is not either registered or not pursued or closed as compromised. But I must say that we have a very overworked police organization all over the country. Therefore, we need help of activists, NGOs, to go deep into these complaints. If the girl, in this case Shraddha, has withdrawn the case, withdrawn the complaint, I understand police did not follow up, but had there been some activists involved, some NGOs involved with that police station, maybe that inquiry could have been entrusted to them to follow up.
But NGOs can't be attached to every case.
No, No,
Just
Vishnu.
really briefly.
In Maharashtra, we have an institution called Mahila Dakshata Samitis, and it's all over the state, and each police station is supposed to have. So I'm wondering, in case Shraddha withdrew that application,
why
would we
wasn't
have
there
given
support?
it to a member?
Why wasn't there
of
support for
Dakshata?
her from an? Kavita, half a second. We've got Rajat Shukla, who is a friend of Shraddha's, joins us on this program. He's spoken to us in the past as well. Rajat, could you tell us a little bit about this 2020 letter? Were you aware of the fact that this man had threatened to cut her up into pieces?
It's really unfortunate that this man Aftab was too cunning, too sharp, and too criminal-minded to have actually plotted it in a way where he can make all friends of Shraddha away from her. Be them, the childhood friends, be them the school friends or college friends, be her family as well.
Were you aware of this letter? Were you aware of this
letter? No, I
wasn't.
It was 2019 and no college friends opposed that were informed about it. Now the sad part here is, we have to understand, this is not a case of domestic violence. This is something too bigger and too sensitive than that. We have to acknowledge the fact that he had already tried to murder her. Now there has to be a complaint lodged upon attempt to murder. If you see that very well, if you read the letter very well.
Rajat, I'm just trying to understand, because you have mentioned to me in the past that you were aware that she was a victim of violence. Now, ultimately, as we have discussed on this program, there are many reasons and many circumstances for a woman to continue in a relationship, and also there is a particular way in which she decides to get out of it, and it depends on the person itself. But as a friend, were there occasions when you or others tried to persuade her to get out of that, because she could end up losing her life?
In the year 2019, when the first time it was informed, they got into the relationship, then the violence started, it seemed normal then. But in the year 2021, when for the first time Shraddha went to her college, a girl from our group itself, the best friend of then, she went and she showed her back, which had cigarette butts, literally the marks of it. So that was something literally that
and these friends didn't complain to the police at that stage?
They did.
They did.
So they literally took her to the police station. She was even writing everything in front of the police. And this man, Aftab, calls her up, says, if you don't come back, I'm going to commit a suicide, and you and your family would be held responsible for that. And Shraddha just goes back. Now the sad part is, the people connected then. I was not connected to her post 2019. I was informed about few things during this time, and when Shraddha was totally lost, and people were trying to find her, there were things informed to me. The sad part is that all the college friends, if you talk to anybody, they're going to say the exact same things, because Aftab somehow he had influenced Shraddha that he would be left only with Aftab and Aftab.
Okay, Rajat, half a second. Kavita, come in over here.
I just wanted to say, Vishnu, that actually I know that Rajat, I don't want to hurt your feelings in any way. She was your friend, absolutely. But I can tell you that actually what you're describing is a classic pattern of domestic violence. This is not anything else. Domestic abusers always do this. Domestic abusers always isolate their victim. They always say that I will die if you go, or I will kill you. That is a later stage, but I will die, I will commit suicide is a very, very, I can't tell you how many times I have seen that. And frankly, what I wanted to say to Ms. Borwankar also is that, you see, I know about the Mahila Dakshata Samitis, and I know that some of them, they do a good job. I'm just saying I don't think that's enough, because I think that what we really need to invest in is a much more, I think they are overworked too. And I think that, and the help they are able to offer, in terms of a long term. You see, what happens is this withdrawal of complaint also is very common. And yes, Vishnu, after that, it is not right for the police to keep investigating. It can't if the victim herself withdraws it. So that is true. But I just think that, if we had a structure whereby you really could have someone who keeps in touch beyond, so that it's not left to friends who don't know how to handle the situation. But someone, it's basically what is crucial is for someone to be able to keep having regular contact and to basically be available the next time this person feels that she is in terrible danger. It will happen again. It may happen many times. She may go back many times. But eventually a day may come when you are able to, get her out.
Yeah.
It is not, it's very difficult. And you need a shelter. We don't have good shelters in this country. The shelters are terrible. No one wants to stay in those shelters. People want to leave them. Like women who get into the shelters, they tell us it's like jail. I want to leave now.
Kavita, half a sec. I just wanted to go back to Meghna.
Sure.
What Meghna has told us is that it took her 8 years to get out of her trauma. And that the abusive marriage broke her confidence. Meghna, we've been talking about physical violence, but the emotional trauma, the psychological trauma is something that sometimes lasts much longer than the physical hurt. Could you tell us about how difficult it was to overcome the physical trauma that you went through in your life, in your experience?
Absolutely. Vishnu, sometimes I just feel really lucky to still be alive. I went through severe depression. I was a very happy and positive person before I got into this relationship. I moved countries. In fact, I used to work for NDTV at that point. I moved countries. I left my job. I left Mumbai, where I had my family and close friends and everybody, to New York, to in the name of love. And I think sometimes, especially women, I think have been taught that the need to be loved is supersedes the need to be right. And I think this is a narrative that has to change. And I became suicidal at some point. I lost all confidence. I was isolated from everything I knew and was familiar with. I had no first responders to go to. And the only people around me were telling me that I was not being abused because it was a perpetrator and his family who told me that I was imagining it. I was asking for it like a rape victim, that I deserved it. Because a couple of times I lashed back. I tried to protect myself, and in protecting myself, they accused me of hitting him in turn. So there was so much manipulation emotionally, financially. So when we talk of abuse, it's not always physical. It can take many forms. And all of that is all tied in together. And I keep telling women, first of all, we're not rehabilitation centers for badly raised men. But we should also learn not that women are always told, especially Indian women, you're very strong, you be a superwoman. And all of this, and I feel like tolerating pain is not a sign of strength. We need to keep telling our women this and understand one thing. The only person who can save you from abuse is you. All our systems around us have unfortunately failed us. Whether it's the police, whether it's the law of the land, whether it's the NGOs, they're all overburdened, overworked. They think of domestic violence as a private issue, which they don't want to get involved with, so that takes place behind closed doors, and we leave it over there.
I just want because I'm running out of time, just a last word from Flora. You had a problem in actually getting an FIR filed despite medical reports which were evident. What did the police say?
They just, so my father is a retired army officer. We went to the police station in the morning, sat there till evening. They were calling my live-in partner again and again and asking him to come to the police station. Madam, I report dikhane, aap aa jao. He refused. He had contacts. He was influential. He just kept chatting with them. He said, I've gone shopping. He didn't turn up. They did not write my complaint till I went to the commissioner, and there was no Mahila Kashita Samita available, nothing. And after reporting to the commissioner, the next day I was called because I had government, hospitals medical reports of a fractured jaw, which is quite serious, and it calls that an FIR should be registered in that case. And till now, I'm talking, my case is of 2007, we're in 22. My case has not even started in court. The abuser doesn't show up. There's a date. So many years, the case hasn't started. I don't know if I'll ever get justice. I've almost given up. Yeah. So even if girls fight, I think live-in, when you're in a live-in, it is quite different from being married. Yes, the abuse is the same, but the laws, the legal system has to be stronger. There has to be, like ma'am said, there has to be a certain division where if a girl comes and, registers a domestic violence complaint and then she takes it back, that's a red flag. People need to
absolutely,
not just,
and that's
she's
something
taken
that we
it back.
really do need to look at carefully. Look, it's been a long struggle for you, as you describe, and I do hope that there is justice for you, and I do hope that ultimately the battles that all of you have waged, you're somehow able to come to terms with all of that. And thank you so much, Kavita, for highlighting this issue. We're out of time on this program. This is a theme that we really do need to keep tracking on a regular basis. We'll take a short break, come back with more.